Don't you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
And thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. All right, before we get going here, don't forget, if you're on YouTube, of course, if you like the videos, hit the like button and subscribe. That'll let you, if you hit the notification bell, that'll let you know when we're going to go live. But of course, we've been imploring everybody to show up at Rumble, the People's Pundit Rumble channel. Sign up there, and when you're there, it's a great time to sign up for the peoplespundit.locals.com community. It says join locals right over there. Got a lot going on this week and a lot more to come. All right, so we had the March 2022 survey, and we've already begun without any push to fund April 2022. So it does look like at least we're going to make a go out of doing a national survey. A national monthly survey. Last month, or last survey, I should say, it was the 1-year anniversary, and we funded it with lightning speed like we did the very first project we ever did. And because we did, we expanded our contributor base. So that means less burden on the people who have been funding it over time, or at least that's the goal anyway, right? All right. So with that in mind, I really want to go over the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index in great detail today. All right. And the reason why is because I think there's some good we could take out of it, but unfortunately, it's not the good we needed. I think what happened was a little bit of a shock and a slight recovery from that initial shock. Here's the problem, and I'm going to show you. There's one index or one sub indicator in the future index, the expectations index, right? That is not recovering as quickly as the others. Well, they didn't even recover yet, but it did not rebound as significantly as the other indexes. And why does that matter? Because of what that index particularly pertains to. So I think that as long as this one stays, in underperformance mode, which signals recession, as long as it stays there, the other ones will probably falter over the coming months. So they may go up and down here and there, but in the end, if that last sub indicator does not recover, then the rest of them will follow suit. All right. You know what? Let me get into it and you'll see what I mean. So first and foremost, let's pull up the crosstabs, which I added locals. I sent that to you really early this morning. It was actually on there last night. I just didn't get a chance to give everybody a shout out, so I did it very early this morning. All right, let me put this up here because I know it's small when I look at it specifically. Very first sub indicator is the current business conditions, right? Please assign either a positive, neutral, or negative rating to reflect your perception for each of the following. This specifically is views on current, present business conditions. 22% had a positive view. This is why I want to go over this in detail. 34.6% had a negative view, but 43.4% had a neutral view. And why does that matter? Because there's Labor Day. Let's go to fall. Here's winter. In winter, 18.3% had a positive view. 39.1% had a negative. But the amount of neutral went up slightly this month. So because it's a relative value, it can throw it off. It can make it look like it's doing significantly better when really it went from like 19 to 22 as far as positive. It's a 2.1% sampling error. So overall, that's what relative values are for, though. And we did design this index not to be volatile. And yet it still was when we started to see the decline. And I'll eventually show you the overall trend and what it looks like on a line graph, right? But for now, I want to stick to going over these specifically, and then we're going to come back and explain why that is. That current business conditions, when you do the relative values, for those who have not heard of this or how we do this, a relative value, it's very much like the Consumer Confidence Index, only we don't use 1985 as a baseline. All right, because why? We weren't around in 1985. We weren't doing this, right? That's what the conference board, it's conducted by Nielsen. That's what they do. So we are, kind of doing this on our own. It's our own thing. So that's why our values are not as high as the consumer confidence, even though it's generally done the same way. Our universe, however, a population that we're targeting is registered voters, because I believe in the end, we will be proven to be more predictive than the economic indexes that sample everyone. All right. So over the last month, so basically the value went up from 31.9 to 38.9. So a nice jump. But when you look at overall what pushed that jump, folks, it really was not, unfortunately, it was not this big disruption in people saying, or big increase in people having a more positive view. Unfortunately, it was a little bit more that said neutral, and a little bit less that said negative, and a little bit more that said positive. But overall, because it is a relative value, which, what do I mean? We take the sum of the positive and the negative. All right. And then you take the positive and you divide it by the sum of the positive and negative, which is why neutral can really influence it. Not influence it. It can, that's not the correct word. It can have a significant impact on the overall value. All right. Looking at the current employment conditions, right? Please assign either a positive, neutral, or negative rating to reflect your perception for each of the following: views on current or present employment conditions. Now, this actually did go up a little bit. 28.7% said that they had a positive view of the current job market, right? That's up from 24%. So again, that's not great, right? But it's better than it was last month. Last month, 43.5 said they had a negative view of it. This month, only 33.7 had a negative view. Once again, that neutral bloated from 32.7 to 37.6. So this one was one of the indexes, sub indicators, that actually increased, pretty nice. We should be happy to see this. Unfortunately, like I said, we're going to get into some worse news as we get to the future expectations. And unfortunately, if that's the way it's going to be, then we saw this, right? We saw this play out last year, where people began to say, I feel a little bit better about the current situation. But they didn't have once they started to have a sour feeling about the future, it followed suit. And that's, the future is a 6-month outlook, right? So we're not even going to get to that. Well, we'll see. But again, that's rose from 37.4, the current employment conditions, to 46 flat. That's a nice rise. That's not bad. Although, when we look at the overall trend, don't get too excited, is my point. All right, so let's move on over to expectations. This is the first sub indicator that is in the expectations index. The last two we just went over. That is the current conditions part of this overall index. Current conditions has 2 sub-indicators, and the expectations index has 3 sub-indicators. They make up 2 sub-indexes, and then taken together, they make up the overall registered voter economic confidence index level. I know it's a little bit crazy, but that's why I want to do this in detail. All right, this month, business conditions, right? Assign a positive, neutral, or negative for the following: expectations regarding business conditions 6 months from now. So this didn't really go anywhere. Last month, it was 26.8% positive, the future tends to be higher. All right. And this month it was only 28.6. So we're talking about just out of the sampling error, what we would call marginal improvement. And this is where the news starts to get a little bit crappy. Now, if it continues to trend better, then that could mean something. But for right now, we're still within this area. And then also when we get to this last sub indicator, you'll see why I still am rather concerned. All right. 37.4% last month said they had a negative view of the 6-month outlook regarding business conditions. This month, it's 33.7. So again, a marginal improvement. Last month, about 36% were neutral. And again, this month, 38% were neutral. So again, that's marginal, right? All right, here's where we start to get into employment. Employment was 32.9% positive this month. That's up from 31.3. So within the sampling era, not even, I mean, it's statistically insignificant improvement, but it is improvement nonetheless. 33.1% last month had a neutral opinion. 35.4% this month have a neutral opinion. Negative was 35.6% last month. This one, we do see some marginal improvement. 31.7% were negative this month. So that sub-indicator, of course, did rise overall from 46.8 to 51.0. Oh, and by the way, the index or the level for the expectations for business conditions, I skipped over. That rose from 41.7 last month to 46 flat also this month. But again, as we get, how do you feel about the the labor market 6 months from now? That was barely any improvement, 46.8 to 51.0. But it is worth noting that it hasn't been above 50 since September of last year. All right, so it is somewhat decent news, right? As far as expectations for business conditions, we're still not at that September level. Last September, in September of 2021, that last index that last sub indicator was 53.9. So we're only at 46 for that one as well. So we're not really, I'm not jumping up and down for joy yet. Here is the remaining problematic index, okay? This is, of course, the inflation-related sub-indicator. Reflect your perception for each of the following. Expectations regarding total family income 6 months from now. Folks, last month, it was 24.3% positive. It did rise to 28. But neutral increased as well from 35.8 to 36.6, marginal, but that negative number was 39.9 last month. Yeah, again, improvement to 35.4, but still not fantastic. Overall, and you're going to see it, overall, the expectations for total family income component rose from 37.9 to 44.2. That is the highest since November of 2021 when it was 50.1, but it is still below. Why does this matter? Because 4 out of the 5 indicators, we're talking about relative values here, folks. 4 out of the 5 indicators remain below the recessionary level. So if we have one index, which is statistically insignificant from that threshold, it's 1 point away from that threshold. So it's in, what would indicate growth territory by 1 point. When we start to get up to where we were again, just to give you guys an example, in the first survey, current business conditions came in at 51.8. This month, we're jumping up and down that it's 38.9. Okay? Current employment conditions has suffered. It has been lower than it has been lower than other indicators, generally speaking, throughout this time. That's the only one that recovered close to where it was, when we started this project, which was 48.7, and now we're at 46.0. The expectations for business conditions, that was 62.2% at this point last year. Now it's 46. Expectations for employment conditions, that was 65% last year. And now we're at 51. That's the one that's just 1 point marginal above. Expectations for total family income, that was 60.7% last year. And now we're at an index level 44.2. So I'm trying to explain that because when I show you this right now, you'll understand why it really doesn't look all that great still. It's improvement, but economically, I never did understand people who jump up and down, if like the president that they don't like is presiding over a bad economy. I never could understand the people who would like push for a recession or push for a bad economy or even revel in it just for politics. And we all know that happened for 4 years, an attempt to push the economy into a recession. These are your fellow Americans. So really, when it comes down to it, everybody should be rooting for it. Unfortunately, Americans just don't see that we're at that point yet. This is the 1-year trend for this index, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we're at. It's garbage. I was hoping to see, maybe from like a September to June kind of bounce back. Almost there, but not quite. And unfortunately, because we're looking at different right? These are 3 indexes. And let's show you the overall. The gold is the overall index level. Registered voter economic confidence index this month came in at 45.2. That is up from 39.1. So, I'll take a 6.1% increase. But generally speaking, the present situation index drove most of that. 42.5 this month, up from 34.7. The expectation sub-index was 42.4, and then now it's 47.1. So, it's growth, I would say, or not. It's not growth. That's not the correct way to put it. It's not growth. It's improvement. It's just that as long as that one sub-indicator linked to inflation, expectations for total family income, as long as that remains well below 50% like it is now, then you can expect that the other 4 indexes, particularly the current conditions index, whether it's employment or business, you can expect them, to basically bounce up and down, maybe a little bit better one month, a little bit worse the next month. But generally speaking, it's not going to recover to where it was if people feel that their wages, their incomes are not going to be worth enough 6 months down the road. Because then they'll start feeling worse about employment. They will, because, where's my upward mobility? Where's my wage growth to keep up with this? That's the thing. That's what they're going to start asking themselves. And that's why you really didn't see the outlook for employment bounce up that much. The outlook for business conditions did. But if this continues, below 50, 44.2, for 2/3 the time of this survey over the last year, that inflation indicator was above 50%. And many times, or once, I would say, once, is not many. 3 out of, so half the time it was at or above in the 50s. And then at one point it was in the 60s. Then we dipped into the 30s, the high 30s. And now we're back into the low to mid 40s. So if that continues, then we can just expect this thing to kind of bob up and down, generally in this area. I think we'll probably wind up, maybe we'll get back here, somewhere along here. It'd be nice if we got maybe in the 50 to 55 range, but I'm not seeing any solid index levels in the 60s anytime soon if inflation concerns remain as high as they are. And I see no reason why they wouldn't, right? Smart audience. when you're looking at this, how much would you attribute to maybe just this is potentially a rally around the flag? Right? And yeah, Laura, I saw your message. 1 o'clock on Friday is just fine. All right. And when that's official, just let me know. And then if that's what he can do, that's what he can do. It is official. Okay, we'll have Joe Kent on Friday to talk about this. Speaking of rally around the flag, I've been trying to figure out what show would be a good day, or really to have him on to discuss his feelings in Ukraine, considering his military background. It might matter, right? All this other military candidates that are on the Republican side, Republicans could fall into a serious trap here. Democrats are springing a trap here. And there are a lot of Republicans who just feel like they want to walk into it for some reason. For instance, Mandel and Gibbons made a horrible blunder in the debate for the U.S. Senate on the Republican primary in Ohio. The voters of Ohio are incredibly anti-war. They don't give a damn about Europe anymore. They just don't. Not when they're concerned about inflation and their paychecks over the next 6 months. They don't care. And I really can't explain it outside of it's really, be truthful, it's a fear. There are more Republicans than not who are afraid of what the media is going to say about them. Oh, he's pro-Putin. He's the Putin wing of the party. And so, J.D. Vance has been getting clobbered with ads. Hey, look, these are statements he made. So I know that a lot of people had conversions under Donald Trump, and it's up to him to make that case. The only thing people like Mandel and Gibbons have going for them is that the media is such a dishonest engine. They push more disinformation than anybody. You know that. So this idea, and we're going to go over another poll in a minute here, this idea that when people support a no-fly zone, and we could show you, we're going to go over this week too, some of that polling we did in this survey in detail, because when you're more clear, and I think we were more clear last month about what that meant, but still it didn't get rave reviews. Maybe, I think some polls, what did I see, as low as 23%, as high as 40%, which is I think where this poll is, we're going to go over, say that people supported enforcing a no-fly zone. And for the most part, when people understand what that means, they run for the hills. Democrats are springing a trap. Why? Because Democrats, their coalition, are going to vote for them no matter what. That core of their coalition doesn't matter. They could completely change their mind tomorrow. Xi Jinping could be the devil, and they would totally change their mind, pretend like nothing happened, and act as if they've always been against Xi Jinping. That's just how they are. Republicans are the ones with, right now, the larger coalition, but the more tenuous one. Because these are voters, not necessarily go back to the Democratic Party, but they just won't vote. Right now, they're under the impression that Republicans care more about inflation, more about education, more about American issues, domestic issues, what's going on with their families and their kids and their careers. They get distracted from that, and they will have screwed themselves. I don't understand that question. Favorability and expectation for the income over the next 6 months. What factor? Oh, I do actually. Never mind. I do CPI. I get what you're saying. That's what I was getting to that. I was taking the long way around, but I was getting to that. How much of this, ladies and gentlemen, in and of itself could be a rally around the flag? Maybe people are just having that patriotic kind of bounce. They don't want to necessarily give it to Joe Biden. They got to put it somewhere. So maybe they just, I think we're in a stronger position than most people think we are. Kind of idea. What's to say We know the inflation indicator did not rise that much because they know what's going on with gas still. They know what this means for future gas prices in the summer. The 6-month outlook, folks. Gas, what do you think the 6-month outlook is for gas? We haven't even hit the seasonal or summer driving season yet. Gas always goes up in the summer as we get into the summer. So they know that. Maybe, though, that's why they gave that a little bit more optimism for the other indicators, but withheld it when it came to inflation. And then next month, things aren't going well. We're paying a whole hell of a lot more. A few more missed job reports and housing index misses, and we're right back to square one. I hope not. I hope we've kind of at least stabilized, because, ladies and gentlemen, this was bad. This index was designed to make marginal corrections over the long term. We would see a trend. It was not meant to dive 10 points like it did going into the summer of last year. It ticked back up a little bit. See, we've seen this before. This is what I'm concerned about. We've seen this before. Look at the end. So we had the summer just completely, the bottom fell out after June for us. And the registered voter economic confidence index overall, it fell from 57.7 to 48.6. It tried to recover the next month just below 50. It tried to recover, and then it crashed again. It went down another 5 the next month, went down almost basically another 5 that next month. Now we're recovering a little bit again. Will we dive again, or will we plateau? I just don't know how much we can expect it to increase again. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll go back up to, I don't know, 49.8 range to 50 range, and then kind of level out and hit that plateau. Maybe it will. I'm just saying, the last time we saw negative for the future, better for the current, was right before the decline. And when we did see this bump in the index, look at what actually rose. The present situation index from that month, where we saw a slight recovery, went from 43.5 to 44.9. Expectations went from 51.9 to 53.1. I don't know. I'm skeptical. That's my point. Color me skeptical. Until that inflation-related sub-indicator gets better, then I don't expect to see significant improvement. And you know what? For the sake of your neighbor, you should hope I'm wrong. For the sake of your brother, your sister-in-law, who the hell knows? Whoever it is to you. Let's hope I'm wrong. But I don't know. Because it really all comes down to how much money people have in their pockets. People were looking at the Emerson poll the other day, and they're like, how could Trump's favorability be at 59%? And I tried to explain, in California 13, he was at 50% favorability. This is a district I polled for David Giglio. He lost it by 12 points to Joe Biden. He didn't lose the country by 12 points nationally. This district voted 8 points more in favor of Joe Biden than the nation overall. And yet he was at 50. So I'm not all that surprised to see Donald Trump in the high 50s. And by the way, I made a little joke the other day, but it's worth repeating if you didn't see it on Twitter. Find me the last president, defeated or otherwise, who left office supposedly unpopular and then rebounded within a year as Donald Trump has rebounded. Donald Trump currently is the most popular politician in the country. Why is that? How could he go from eliciting at least a visceral reaction from 40% of the country to this, to the low 30s, saying very unfavorable? It's because of the pocketbook. It all of a sudden becomes mundane to care about mean tweets when you're paying $4,000 more a year for goods in the CPI. Leaving out, by the way,
what is not in the CPI. As Lauren June put last week, an increase in mortgage payments, right? An increase from 3 to 4% financing, boxing you out of the market. None of these other concerns are measured by a CPI that has already been widely criticized for vastly understating the real rise in inflation. By the way, if you didn't see Steve Cortez's video, you know what? I'll play it. I'm going to play it because it makes my point. Chalk Talk with Steve Cortez. I'm going to actually play this. All right. And I'm just going to go onto my Twitter and do it. All right. For you guys. But basically what I'm saying here is that you can't underestimate the power of pocketbook issues to change people's minds. One politician I can think of completely revamped his image in a short period of time. He won re-election. We call him the Giant Slayer because he took out not only people, but took out big names previously thought to be undefeatable. And he did it typically with like a 40% approval rating or a 38 to 42% favorable rating. And that was former governor, now senator of the great state of Florida, Rick Scott. How did he do it? Irma. Sometimes when there is, it could be a catastrophe, it could be economic disruption, where people really feel unstable, then we can see big changes like this. By the way, the little trivia before was a trick question. You will not find a president who recovered this quickly and had a surge in favorability like Donald Trump. You won't find it because it doesn't exist. And you damn sure won't find it with someone who is supposedly defeated. All right. Let's play Steve's Chalk Talk. Because again, and the reason why I'm doing it is to drive home the point I'm trying to make, which is that never underestimate the power of, it is a fear. You know, it's an economic fear, but never underestimate the power of the pocketbook. Okay. All right. Let's, is it up? Let's do it. Okay. 1 minute, 6 seconds.
Joe Biden, everything that matters in your life is getting
going back. Okay.
Patriots under Joe Biden, everything that matters in your life is getting massively more expensive, and that includes housing. Let's look at the data. For those who are renters, according to apartmentlist.com, rental rates for the year 2021 went up a record 18% for the year. To put that in historical context, looking at 2019, red hot pre-pandemic economy, rental prices only went up 2%, much more in line with historical norms. For those who are fortunate enough to own their homes, the average mortgage payment in America just hit an all-time record high above $1,200 per month. That is 36% higher than a year ago when the average payment was just over $900 a month. Now, if you want to say that perhaps the 2021 figure was distorted by COVID, fine. Let's look at 2019. Pre-pandemic, red-hot economy, $962 per month. So we are still 28% higher right now than 2019 in average monthly mortgage payments. See the charts and the details in my attached article.
All right, so you generally get the idea. All right, and people like Ron Paul, people like them for years have been, and I almost hit my messages there while it was playing. I was about to play something totally different. But generally, they've been arguing that CPI grossly understates inflation anyway, and I would argue that they're correct. Hold on, I'm actually responding. Hold on. But yeah, I would argue that they're correct because there are so many other components. Now, when we ask those issues, interestingly, this month, what changed? And most important issue, I'll do this with you. Let's pop this in real quick. And I'm going to show you this month we had a switch on speaking of inflation, what people told us drove them to say inflation. Okay. So here's our little handy dandy crosstabs. Let's go to rows. That's our question. Here's most important issue. we are going to go to where it is the most important issue, specifically regarding the cost of inflation and locals. I will fix this later to make it look pretty. All right. But for right now, let's just do this. And let's look specifically at why people said inflation. I'm going to save it. Close the editor so it's nice and big. Remember, it had been food and groceries. Not going away, but 30 to 40% over the last several months had said it was food and groceries. This is a large subsample, by the way, because so many people did pick inflation, cost of living as their number one issue. More people this month than in the last 6 months when it started to rise as a major concern, or really started to show its dominance as a major concern. Gas and fuel went to 38.3% this month. And actually, locals, I'm going to start adding this to a line graph. We're going to track this. This is going to be another resource I'm going to give you. We're going to track not only the most important issue leading up into the election, but these details. Why did you pick cost of living? And we'll see how it changes over time. All right. We did see, by the way, I don't know how many people might have missed this. We did see an increase in foreign policy, national security to 9%. Some of that came out of immigration, which was higher last month. Some of it came out of crime, which was higher last month. Okay. But it's not helping Democrats because on those issues, the most important issue, Republicans lead on the generic ballot by quite a bit. But here's the deal. That's what I'm talking about when I say there's a danger there. They can blow this in a heartbeat because the coalition supporting them is not thrilled about intervention. And I know I'd rather look at what the polling we did, but we do have basically all week to go over it. And locals, I'm doing a live stream tomorrow to talk more about the stuff that we put up. If you have noticed, we've been going through a lot of revamping. I actually totally dumped the client portal, offloaded it so we could have more resources to show you guys all of these trackers. Right now, by the end of today, the registered voter economic confidence index trends will be up. The direction of country trends will be up. The right track, wrong track. The generic ballot will be up. We're just going to call it presidential approval rating, or no, maybe we will specify it. Maybe we'll make a hub for presidential approval rating and then, make a subgroup for Biden, because we're going to be doing this for a while. The success we've had here, I really do foresee doing this for a very long time. So eventually we'll have to be like Gallup and Rasmussen, where we put it into a presidential approval center kind of thing. And then you'll have to look up different presidents as the time goes on. So I hate to really burst everybody's bubble who hates my guts, but I'm not going anywhere. All right. All right. Speaking of which, I don't mean it like that. I'm not trying to diss on this one. I'm just a little bit surprised with some of what I see in this. Nevertheless, horrible news for Joe Biden. Okay. And in the end, horrible news for Democrats, because no matter what the generic ballot does, bobs up and down, no matter what the 2024 vote does, bob up and down, this approval rating and the direction of the country is predictive. They are predictive. All right. And they're incredibly, historically horrible right now. 34. All right. Do you approve or disapprove of the way Joe Biden is handling his job as president? This month, and by the way, in October, this is a Seltzer conducted poll. Seltzer and Company did it for Grinnell College. National poll. Last poll they did was in October. 37% approved of the job Joe Biden was doing. 50% disapproved. This month, they have Joe Biden at 34%, with 52% disapproving. I am a little bit, and I'm going to voice some of my concerns here and skepticisms. This 12 to 14% unsure, to me, is a little bit weird. Joe Biden hasn't had that. Like, we're at 2.5%, ladies and gentlemen, unsure. 2.5%. That's it.
With us, 41% strongly disapprove and 16% somewhat disapprove. So 57 overall. So more than Seltzer in this latest poll at 52%. I don't know, folks. It seems to me like some of this not sure is a disapproval. At least some of it. Our approval for Joe Biden's higher than this one. 6 points higher. So I'm not trying to say it's like, it's skewed too pro-Biden on approval. I strongly suspect, I don't know. We went over this PDF crap last week. I don't know what these PDFs are. It says weighted by sex, age, and race. And this is why, and Laura will tell all of you, I have long admired Ann Seltzer's work. Because she does not, and I know some good pollsters do this, but she does not weight by party. If you do all of the basics correctly, I just had a conference call Monday talking with people about different weighting tactics and why. They have other clients or other pollsters that they're working with that do have to do all of these interlocking weights and quotas. They're just not doing the basics correctly. Sex, age, and race. We add sex, age, race, and region. You do the fundamentals correctly, you shouldn't have to touch party all that much. Region is going to change party. And this is not some secret. So, hold off on slapping me here, Laura, because she hates it when I give up too much. But region is how you know whether or not you're slanting one way or the other. If you're too metro, your sampling is going to favor Democrats. All right, so in the end, I think what happened here was that there was a little bit more metro unshores disproportionately impacting that. And why do I say that? I will come back to the rest of it. Look down here, jumped right out at me. And we are going to go through all of these, but hold on, I don't want to go too much here, too fast, too soon. All right, go on. Here we go. In the 2020 presidential election, did you vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden? For someone else, or did you not vote? And by the way, good for you, and rotate candidate names. What the hell is with this crap? People don't rotate the names. Donald Trump, 33%. Joe Biden, 36%. Someone else, 9%. Did not vote, 16%. Refused or not sure, 6%. That compares to what we found, which was, I got to put this in here. I didn't know this wasn't in there either still. And I'll put it in. It favored, the support for Joe Biden was a little bit weaker than it normally is. But this is not because we're overestimating Donald Trump. We're not. When we asked this question, we got 46.5% for Donald Trump, which means Donald Trump basically has every single voter that he had in 2020. All right, he hasn't lost anybody. 49.2% for Joe Biden. But we know these are Biden voters saying they voted for another candidate. Jorgensen was at 2.2, and other candidate was 2.1. And I was like, bouncing things off of Laura like crazy, trying to find out where this was coming from. Without a doubt, they were Metro, Northeast, and Western. Yuppie's not the word. Maybe it is. They were disproportionately in the West and the Northeast, Metro-leaning areas, wealthy suburbs, saying they voted for somebody else. Right, Laura? You're in the chat, right? When we know the likelihood of them being a Biden voter is extremely high. What is happening here, which is why you cannot wait towards a prior presidential vote. One of the main reasons. The other I'll explain in a second. People lie. If a president is unpopular, they lie about who they voted for. They will pretend they didn't have a hand in this disaster. Oh, no. You know what? I voted for somebody else. They may not admit they voted for Donald, they may not say or claim that they voted for Donald Trump when they didn't, but they damn sure will say, someone else, or I can't remember. That's ridiculous. And 33% not voting, 33% voting for Joe Biden, or 33 for Trump, 36 for Joe Biden. There we go. That's nice. 16% did not vote, and 6 were refused or not sure. Why the hell are you giving them an option to refuse? How the hell do you not remember who you voted for? That's not how our question is. Thinking back to the 2020 presidential election last November, for whom did you vote? Rotate the response at random, whether it's Biden, Trump, Jorgensen, someone else, rotate them. But force people to pick. And by the way, not everybody should answer this question. Did not vote. That'll throw off your margin, and you won't know how close you are toward the actual shift in public opinion. If you ask only people who told you they voted, or they did, in 2020, then you can give a more accurate gauge on how much the electorate has shifted in one direction or the other. And you can't wait for that, because not everybody, for number one, people lie. That's number one, as I just demonstrate. But number two is that not everybody voted in 2020. So how the hell would you wait for that? You're going to have empty column values in your data set. You could ignore it, but your weighting efficiency is going to plummet. Fact is, you simply are going to have new people in the sample that did not vote. And there is no way to wait for them. Not accurately, anyway. And plus, you're modeling an electorate that will not exist in the future. It won't. There is no one election can you point to that mirrors the previous election when it comes to the electorate. What do I mean by that? If the electorate was even in 2020, was it even in 2018? So if you waited for 2018, the prior election, you were wrong. What about 2016? Even if you were to just wait based on one presidential cycle to the next, the electorate changed. So if you thought, well, I don't know, I think it's going to be D+3, you were wrong. Oh, well, I just waited towards the exit polls in 2016. That's a cop-out. It is your job as a pollster to decide how the electorate, or not even decide, just to listen. You don't decide anything. It's your job to listen, and it will tell you how it's changing. So some of this stuff is just nuts. And again, frankly, I just don't know how in hell we're putting out these like PDFs with like no information. I just, what the hell's going on here? Anyway, this survey was 33% Democrat, okay? And it was 34% Republican. This survey was R+1. Ours was R+0.2. And 26% was totally independent. 2% was other. And again, the refuse, not sure. Conservative was 34%. That's a little bit lower than ours. I think we were at 36 something. I could go and look at the PDF. That's what that PDF is for, by the way, folks. Awesome suggestions. That PDF will be updated and changed. And every month on Big Data Poll, people will be able to see that PDF and find out. We were 37.6% conservative. So this is what I'm telling you when I say I can see Metro skew here, which is why the don't know, I'm unsure category, when it's bad for, when it's Biden's approval, for instance, those are Biden voters lying. They're lying. It's 2 Metro. Moderate, 38. Liberal, only 20. We were at 25, right? 25. None of these was 4. Refuse, not sure. 5. This is dead on with education. Anne is dead on here. Pretty close. 44, 56. That's pretty close. Do you have children under the age of 18 living at home? We say, which best describes, your parental status. I don't have children. I have children school age below the age of 18. I have children that are all over 18, right? We just asked that in one simple question. City, 31%. I think that's a bit high. Suburb, 29. I'm not sure what town means, right? 22 is rural. That's pretty much right where we are at. This is Protestant, other Catholic. That's 48%. Why do I care? Because I was kind of looking at this and wondering. The Northeast was a little bit in my mind. The Northeast was too much. Not too much. I mean, I just think we probably were a little bit too favorable to the Northeast in our latest poll. And in fact, I was playing with it over the weekend. And in fact, that may be all that accounts for Joe Biden's tiny little bump from 38 to 40%. If the Northeast was 16.5, 17%, then Biden falls below 40. The voter file overall, I don't care what the exit polls say. The voter file overall, very clear. The Northeast is depressed. It's losing population. And it is now only 17% of the overall nation. The South is gobbling everybody up. The Midwest, the West is like 22%. The Midwest is the second largest. And, it's very interesting. All right, but let's go back up to some of these questions. And this is why I can't wait to have Joe Ken on. As you think about the next 12 months, think about this with the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index we were just going over. As you think about the next 12 months, we do a 6-month outlook. Do you expect the overall strength of the U.S. economy to be better or worse as compared to the way you see it now? 27% said better. That's down from 36% in October, just as recently as March 2021, which is when we started out, and the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index was indicating growth. It was at the very first level, and that's after 56.1%, roughly around the time where it is 47 better, 45 worse. We had it. Our index was 56.1%. Now we're down to 27% better, 58% worse, 9% about the same, 6% were not sure or undecided, right? How confident are you that across the country, the votes in the 2022 general election this year will be counted as voters intended? Very confident, somewhat confident, not too confident, or not at all confident. Not at all is 16. Not too confident is 20. That's 36%. Only 31% is somewhat confident, and only 29% are very confident. You could make it look better if you compare these two, of course. But generally speaking, this shows a serious erosion in the trust and the integrity of our elections. Listen, though, I want to take a second and speak to this. When I go on Bannon and try to make people understand, I polled all throughout 2020. We never had Donald Trump ahead in the popular vote. It was always a Biden lead between 2 and 6 points. And because of Donald Trump's strength among certain groups, the Electoral College was definitely in doubt because Joe Biden needed to win the Electoral College by an outsized margin. The popular vote in order to carry the Electoral College, even more so than Hillary Clinton. And some would say, including the Electoral College model, would say that a 4-point win like Biden got was not enough. Biden needed 5%, maybe even 6%. All right? This is what, and I'll go on there and I'll say that. And there's always somebody on the right who says, well, they're just going to steal an election. We show polling in California 13, which, by the way, even the Democrat Adam Gray, his own polling shows he's down to David Gillio. Okay. His own poll. I don't know why he released it. It looks to push Phil Arbaio out, but it's abysmal. And I go and try to explain to people the shift in that district over the last year. And it's, it's California. They're just going to rob it. In the recall, they didn't rob it. That area of the state voted heavily to throw out Gavin Newsom. They loved Larry Elder. He was a rock star in that area. He crushed it. He carried the most liberal county in the valley with more than 60% of the vote. And by the way, that county voted yes to get rid of Gavin Newsom. So whatever they were doing to rig the election didn't work there. And I'm trying to explain that even if that was true, there is a point where the margin is so big it doesn't freaking matter. There's just not, the numbers don't add up. They couldn't do it if they wanted to, ladies and gentlemen. They want you to think like that. If you're on the right, hear me when I tell you this. The left wants you to believe that all of the elections are rigged beyond repair. They can't win unless you stay home. So they want you dejected and with a defeatist attitude. All is lost. That's how they want you. That's why the left, they may, put out stupid slogans like the big lie, right? But the truth be told, they love talking about election fraud. They love it. All right. When you think about what children are being taught in public school these days, do you think schools are headed in the right direction or have they gotten off on the wrong track? What an interesting question. I got to give Seltzer credit here. I don't know who came up with this, whether it was her or Grinnell or her team or Grinnell. I'm quite sure they may have said, this is kind of what we want to ask, and she would definitely have the final say in how the hell that question is going to be formatted. But interesting question, right? 24% said public schools are, what they teach in public schools is headed in the right direction. And 64% say no, it's headed in the wrong track. Very interesting question. By the way, and I know we're coming up on the break. After we're done with this one, we're going to take a look at some of the Rasmussen polling that I put up on Locals earlier today. Very, very interesting. You know what? It's 12:58. Let me just do the spiel. And let's do the spiel. And then after the break, we'll come back and we'll continue going on because I found some of this education stuff really fascinating and disconnected. Fascinating and completely disconnected from what criteria in public schools would suggest. They don't seem to have the same priorities as Americans on what they want to teach children. It's not even a matter of I'm not talking about specific things like 16, 19, and CRT. I'm talking about criteria. I'm talking about actual subject matter. It was very, very interesting. All right, 12:59. We're coming up on the break. All right, don't go anywhere because we're just running that video and we will be back. But before we go, if you're watching on YouTube and you like the video, hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell because that will let you know when we're going to go live. But like I always say, we are imploring you to go over to Rumble, sign up for the People's Pundit Rumble channel. I got to look at what happened to Charlie Kirk, my boy Charlie. He said something that was demonstrably true. And because it offended everybody's delicate sensibilities over transgenderism now, which between that and pedophilia will soon be, look, if I was gay, I'd be livid to be lumped. And people I know, I don't want to get into it, family, friends, they do not want to be lumped in the same group. But they are clearly doing this now. Clearly. Anyway, we could be here today and gone tomorrow. So while I understand that you have to sign up to Rumble, my response to that is, if you want to comment and interact on YouTube, you really have to sign up anyway. You want to like the video, you have to sign up too. You have to have a Google account. So there's really no difference. You trust Google, you trust Alphabet more with your email than you do with Rumble? I'm not really, I don't know, unless I'm missing something. And by all means, let me know. All right. But yeah, I'm imploring everybody to sign up to Rumble. It's very nicely integrated into Locals. It'll help you see the content easier, number one. But also, there's a link right there. And if you're not a member or a supporter of the Locals community, strongly suggest signing up. All right. If you want to start a member, that's great. The numbers matter because I'm quite confident our conversions are lovely. I'm quite confident eventually you will sign up. So if you want to try first to be a member, by all means do so. But the bigger the community grows, the better the 2022 coverage will be. I was just talking about it with Barnes over the weekend, and I don't want to get ahead of myself and explain, but I have shared some of my vision, and the plans are big, but we certainly need to grow the community to do it. All right. But definitely check it out. It's a great time. Get exclusive polling, embargo polling. You get embargo polling almost every day, which is cool. You'll see things from our friends out there before they are publicly released. But the no share rule is always in effect. All right. The no share rule is embargoed poll, meaning it is not for public consumption. No share rule in effect. Do not send to your friends on Facebook. All right. Which is why I only do it with supporters, because they tend to be more, if you're a paid supporter of the community, then you're serious about being a member of the community, which it is an online community. Without a doubt, guys, Locals isn't like Twitter. Our Locals page is awesome. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the people that belong to it. And I'm grateful. Laura and I are incredibly grateful for the growth that we've seen. But that's why we do that, because we know when we say don't share, you're not going to. We know it. All right. All right. What else could I have missed? I think that's just about it. We're going to come back in the break after 2 minutes and 30 seconds of, as always, special thanks to the Bowen Band for the theme song Bad Habit. We'll be back right after this.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love just for a little fun. I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
So over the break, I'm looking at the different congressional approvals, and I figured after we're done going over the Seltzer poll, we could go over some of what we saw with congressional approval ratings, which also, by the way, congressional leaders' approval ratings, which will be on Big Data Poll as well. And what I was thinking is some of this, look, for locals, what I was thinking is if people have a site on WordPress, you know what I'm talking about. They're password protected. Some posts you can make password protected. So instead of having some kind of stupid like paywall, what we could have is locals will get the password for each of those that we do lock. So some of the stuff will make very general, like everybody else, and then some will be more detailed, especially like social desirability bias indicators, trends like that. That will be password protected, which if you're a supporter on locals, you will get that. All right. Which you guys know the importance of. All right. Looking at this over time, the repeat offenders, it's fascinating. And as far as I know, we're the only ones who are doing it. The only ones. All right. Let's pop this back up on the screen. All right. So, public schools are asked to teach a variety of topics in their curriculum for each of the following subjects. Please tell me if you think it is an essential subject for public schools to teach, important but not essential, not that important, or something public schools should not teach. Look at number 1 right there, American history. With the exception of reading, math, and writing, American history scored the highest when it came to essential. 29% said it's important but not essential. 2% said not important. And 1%, which is only one of 4, that said should not teach. Whereas, some of this other stuff came in statistically insignificant. Home economics and budgeting did not come in that, which should not teach. It didn't have enough to even put down on the scoreboard, ladies and gentlemen. Art and music, essential, 49. Important but not essential, 42. Not important, 7. Should not is insignificant. Not sure, 1. All right. There's a lot of people, and I totally understand this, that are like, look, just get to the books, get to the, and I love mathematics, obviously. So I understand that. I am simply saying, though, there's a lot of mathematics out there, right? A lot of people who have done a lot of math to demonstrate a very strong relationship between arts and music and the humanities with increased learning capacity and other what you would view to be more essential subject matters. So if a kid is in band, all right, how do they fare compared to kids who are not in band? If a kid is, in some kind of an advanced art or something like that, how do they fare compared to one that isn't in music or art or doesn't have an extracurricular activity? There's a wealth of evidence that suggests that these art and music programs do have value. All right. And I understand that sometimes it's just not in the budget. Laura used to work for a school system. We get it. But the fact of the matter is, you got to find it somewhere. Stop spending it on garbage, maybe, right? Perhaps stop spending it on people who go into gas stations to use EBT cards to buy garbage like soda and bags of Doritos. Or at least make it harder to waste your money on something like that. Which, by the way, always seem to be the very ones I got to wait 10 minutes behind while they scratch off the crosswords at the front of the line. Home economics and budgeting, 66% essential. This is interesting because I know this to be true from other research very similar to it. And then anyone can just anecdotally talk to, it's generational for sure. But this has gone completely out the window.
I think, honestly, Laura, our generation was probably the last one to really put a focus on home economics and budgeting, right? We may have been it. I don't know. She may not be able to talk out loud right now, but if she can, pop in and by all means, Laura, because I don't remember this, right?
You're absolutely correct.
Generation may be it, and then they wiped it off the books in most places.
I remember learning how to bake in school and how to make desserts and how to balance a checkbook and how to take care of a baby. Remember they sent us home with those little eggs and we had to like take care of them, not break them. And if you broke the egg, you failed.
I would have failed. But my partner helped me. So I totally, oops, there we go. I totally would have bombed, but I had a good partner, and she was like, I will make sure that this egg does not come back an omelet that you ate in your stomach, you know? Like,
You made me babysit when you had it.
and I did. I had it for one day, and I gave it to Laura. And I was like, yeah, I can't be bothered with this. I'm gonna smash this thing up. I got better important things to do here. But you too, huh, Faye? Yeah. So basically, I think that was it, though, Laura. After us, toward the end of the 90s, they started to really toss this stuff out. I mean, maybe you guys want to chime in. I'd love to hear your thoughts, see it in the comments, because I don't know. I have kids, of course, but then there were people that I knew who were younger than me, and that stuff was just kind of gone and out the window. Yep. And I'm reading some on locals right now. They had it years ago, but don't seem to see anybody who has it now. I'll check Rumble and Rumble's comments too, and the rest. But yeah, it was just kind of like gone, Laura. They just dubbed it not important anymore, which is tragic because of course it is. I mean, look at the student loan debt hanging over us like an economic catastrophe waiting to happen. And there's simply I hate to say it, but there are so many people out there who feel it's like someone else's fault that they're in all of the student loan debt. Not their own. And I get it, because you want to talk about inflation, the rate of inflation. Steve, you should do a video on this, Steve Cortez. Inflation in higher learning is ridiculous. Even when we didn't have periods, supposedly, of high inflation in the CPI, we did have periods one year after the other over the last 20 plus years of when the cost of higher education I think it doubled every few years or something ridiculous. Maybe every handful, 5 years, something like that, which is nuts. So I get it. I totally understand that. By the way, I think, speaking of David, he had the most. We should bring him on so he could talk about his plan with student loan debt. He had the most, and I don't want to blow it for everybody. In fact, we're going to do that. We're going to have David on so we can talk about it. He had the most. First of all, you could call it conservative because it's not a government-centered solution. He had the most creative way of dealing with student loan debt that still, I'll give you this much. It didn't revolve around somebody coming in, government, taxpayer, bailing them out, helping them out, relieving them of that obligation and responsibility. It didn't do that. But it also, well, I should say it isn't government-centered, and it also maintains the principle of personal responsibility, which we just can't shirk anymore. We've got eventually to get a hold of this recklessness that we're engaged in, from the budget to foreign policy to otherwise it's all just going to come down like a house of cards. But we should have David on so we could talk about that, because I was blown away. I've never heard a single politician propose something like that. Never. So, and the minimum wage response, because the minimum wage is popular. It is. And the right, because they have a conservative, kind of Ben Shapiro-like base who would never agree to something like that, they need to find an answer to the left's argument, because the left's argument is popular. And they better get over it, because we're not going back to Ronald Reagan. That's not happening. It's over. So between the student loan idea and the minimum wage idea, I'd love for David to come on and talk about that. It's ingenuity. Let me put it that way. Ingenuity. All right, reading, math, and writing. 81% essential. 19% said important but not essential. Can you even believe some of these numbers? And I know it because, look, dealing with statistics every day. I know there's 19% out there who would say something like that. I just can't. It's just, to me, the fact there is 1 in 5 registered voters who would say that reading, math, and writing is not essential. Are not essential. The fact that 1 in 5 is a testament to how crummy our public school system truly is. By the way, that schmuck on Twitter that I had the back and forth with, this idea that they've run out of criticisms for private schools and voucher systems. Their initial criticisms never came to pass. So now they got to come up with these new lies, which is just, to me, is just absolutely incredible. I don't understand how you just can't look at the data, the evidence, and say, you know what, I was wrong, I'm moving on. Because they don't care. All they care about is the special interest. Private schools are often a conglomerate, a homogenous thinking and ideology. The beautiful thing about public schooling is that we are open to all ways of life. Vouchers would also segregate thinking, not just siphon money. And I know I heard you get up and walk away, Laura, but if you can hear me and you can jump on, because I know Laura has experience in this. She was in a public school system that developed a voucher system because Black and brown children were illiterate until this came around. Florida is a great example of how all of these criticisms of school choice and voucher systems are bunk, garbage. It never happened. This is the latest lie that they drummed up, homogenous thinking in a private school. No, public schools are the ones who persecute people with different beliefs. There's nothing homogenous about voucher systems at all. Was Hidden Oak homogenous, Laura? Was Norton homogenous? It's crazy.
It's very crazy. I completely concur.
I'm not even sure it was minority white. I don't know. I mean,
it's also like, what is it? When embarrassing, like to the students. It was like,
right.
It made them stand out in not a good kind of way. So,
right.
If that makes sense, I'm trying to word it, but I'm also trying to rock the baby simultaneously.
Yeah. So, but the point is, and all those criticisms did not come true.
No.
It made the lower schools compete with the schools everybody wanted with the voucher program.
Mm-hmm.
It made them compete. They had no choice but to get better. Otherwise, because they were funded based on attendance, right? You can be attested to this. They were funded based on attendance, or resources were allocated to them based on attendance. So if they didn't step up their game, they missed out. So like, they didn't go bankrupt. They stepped their game up.
Yeah. It's like the first 90 days is like the most important, where they track your attendance, and the schools that have the highest attendance ratio, and those are the ones that get mostly funded, and then it trickles down in like rank order, I guess you would say, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember, and the point is too, folks, it didn't happen. What the Chicken Little, the sky is falling, people who are pro-union, that's all this really is. They would say that all the talented students are going to leave the public schools or leave that school and and they're going to be, like he's saying, homogenous, right? All with the same line of think. That's not true. In fact, that's not at all what happened. And by the way, I don't like the Bushes at all. I think we all know that. But if Jeb Bush did not come in and institute that program when he did, I can't even imagine what Florida would look like right now. He literally took that state from the worst in the union to competitive, and then Rick Scott expanded it. Ron DeSantis rocked it. And in the last almost 4 years under Ron DeSantis, 3 years, right? He's had a full 3. In almost 3 years, Ron DeSantis really capped it off and pushed them to a point where they can be proud of where they stand now. And in the schools that were basically dilapidated, garbage public schools are now great. The only thing that set us back was
You made
COVID.
a great point, though. Like, if you put in charter schools and school choice, it forces all of those other schools to be that same level, or they get closed down because they don't have the
They're gone,
attendance
man.
ratio that they need.
Yeah, I without a doubt. And people don't seem to know that. And it's sad because, I mean, really, Laura, who's homogenous? The public school system
Yeah.
or the voucher system? I mean,
Mhm.
you know from that office that there's only one hive mind. You know, do
Yep.
do you remember when Donald Trump won the election?
Mhm.
Ladies and
So I
gentlemen, they
walked
were
into
bawling in the
I walked
office.
into school, and I literally thought somebody actually passed away in the school. Like, they
They were
were
hysterical.
hysterical, hyperventilating, crying, red in the face, and I was just beside myself because I'm walking into this mess. And I turn around and I asked one teacher, "What happened? Did somebody pass away?" And they said, "No, no. Didn't you see last night Donald Trump won?" And I just simply said, "Okay," and I proceeded to walk to my office very
The
quietly.
level of immaturity was unbelievable. I took my daughter to pre-K that day and walked in and walked her right out and said, "You're coming to work with daddy today." And I was up all night because of the election. And I'm like,
Mhm.
there is no chance I'm letting these unstable nutcases anywhere near my child today. I mean, it was just totally outrageous. And one African American girl who worked for my wife, ladies and gentlemen, was crying because she thought Donald Trump was going to deport her back to Africa. She was dead serious, right?
Oh,
Deadly serious.
that was a whole lot of special. And then I was told that I should be concerned because I'll be deported. And I'm looking at her like
I'm a
I'm
U.S.
Puerto
citizen,
Rican.
you idiot.
Like, I said, "I'm sorry. I'm
And they're
sorry."
teaching your children, ladies and gentlemen. These are the people who are teaching your children, or even worse, making the curriculum that will teach your children. You know,
She was a grown
uh,
woman. I turned around and I said, "You, how many generations have been born in America on your side of the family?" And
it's just nuts.
she's like a great, great, great grandparent heritage here. And I'm just like, "Why would he deport you?" I said, "Did you come over the border illegally that nobody knows about?"
Yep,
And
yep.
she just stopped herself. And I was just like, "Thank you."
Here's where we start to get into a huge, huge disconnect too. Like I was saying before the break, sex education. 44% say it's essential. 37% say it's important but not essential. 8% said it was not important, and 8% said it should not be taught. And the largest number of undecided was in sex education, which you know from our social desirability bias indicators that you could rest assured that that 3% is against sex education in school, or at least the lion's share of them are, and they just don't want to say it. I'm a little bit concerned about how the question was worded here when you get specifically into some of these curriculum, right? When you're looking into some of these subjects, sex education in high school, sex education in middle school, sex education in K through 12, I mean K through 5. What exactly are you, or K through 6, depending on how your schools are. What exactly are you asking here, which I think is a little bit weird because I would personally give a different answer, I think. Depending on the grade level, of course. This is another one too that what's ironic is this is what they're focusing on. When I say disconnect, folks, this is what they're focusing on when parents and, well, Americans, period, voters, period, really want the emphasis to be on history, home economics and budgeting, reading, math, and writing, which they do. Obviously, they stress that now more than they used to, even though unfortunately there are just so many areas where they say these kids are proficient in reading, math, and writing, but they're not, and they just want the money. So they push these kids either into the next grade level without tools that they need to succeed, or worse, They graduate them without the tools necessary to get that high school diploma, and they make them our problem, and they're not at grade level. Or forget about being at grade level. There are states where the illiteracy rate is like, like China in the 90s. I mean, anyway, languages other than, speaking of foreign languages other than English, I am a little bit surprised in this. I have always made learning foreign languages a priority. I want my children to learn as many as they can. I just think that it's important. I think everybody in America should speak English, and for many reasons. Number one, it should be encouraged because the economy is English. All right. You cannot succeed if you are not proficient in the language of the land. That's number one. But number two, which is frankly more important, is, again, don't make me bust out Benedict Anderson. Don't make me bust out Pecora, Nations and Identities, Imagine Communities, whatever it may be. We have to be bonded by a common language to have a common identity. If we are not, then we are not truly a nation. The left, some on the left, many on the left, would jump up and down and be happy about that, but they would be stupid. They have no idea why the left hates nationalism. Read Tom Narn, and you'll have a better idea. All right, the idea of a nation is a good thing. There's nothing negative, racist, or regressive about nationalism at all. Nationalism has literally saved the world in the last 100 years multiple times. Otherwise, we'd be under some kind of global democide Marxist government if it was not for nationalism. Or maybe worse. Maybe there would have been more French sympathizers to Hitler. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Ken Waltz, man, state war. If it wasn't for ideology, they would have all banded together. Uncle Joe would have been much more friendly with Hitler than the United States if it wasn't for nationalism. They shared, despite the fake idea that fascism is on the right. I will address this one more time. Fascism, well, I'll probably have to do it a bunch of times, but I'm going to do it one more time today at least. Fascism is a left-wing ideology. It is a form of socialism. It is a form of big government statism. It has more in common with Marxism than it does with anything that we consider right-wing at home here in the United States. Because we needed Uncle Joe, we put Hitler on the other side of the spectrum than Uncle Joe because we didn't want to show the American people the bonds they held together. And if it wasn't for nationalism, we would have been screwed. Useful job skills. Again, this is something, vocational schools, things like that, guys. Voc Tech, remember? Vocational technical schools. I had a lot of friends who just couldn't cut it, with higher learning, and they were never going to go to college. And you know what? That was okay. But they went to Voc Tech. Maybe they did electricity. Maybe they did HVAC. Whatever. They learned a skill. They made decent livings off of those skills. There's nothing wrong with it. Yet we demote it, and it's unimportant now. Americans, they know that's not true. 64% say it's essential. These programs are all but gone now, ladies and gentlemen. Important, but not essential, is only 33%. 64%. It's one of the highest in this entire thing. College preparatory courses, far below that, 45% for essential. Right? Even 1% said they should not be taught. You couldn't find anybody to say there was, vocational schools shouldn't be available. It's just the disconnect is incredible. It's incredible. And this is another reason why when Donald Trump was president, he was moving us towards a more goods producing economy, which is not only better because worker wages are going to be higher, but because of national security issues. You don't produce, you're not strong. A service sector economy is not a real superpower. I hate to break it to everybody. In case you didn't notice during COVID. That's one of probably, putting aside all partisanship for a second, be intellectually honest with yourself and think about how much weaker the country is that Donald Trump did not get a chance to learn the lessons of COVID and implement new economic policy that turned us even more to goods producing sectors that we absolutely need to be domestic because they're in the vital national security interest. PPE, ladies and gentlemen, pharmaceutical ingredients, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's just now, look, it's just a matter of fact. It's not partisan. With Joe Biden in the White House, we are not, despite his straight up ripoff of Donald Trump, plagiarizing Donald Trump in the State of the Union address, he does not believe in America first. He does not believe in Made in America. Joe Biden has never voted for a Made in America trade deal in his life. He has voted for Made everywhere but America. Those are the trade deals that Joe Biden has supported. 40 years, the man has a record. 40 years. There is nowhere where you will find Joe a champion of the working class, a champion of domestic production. And by the way, why is anybody shocked that the man has completely destroyed foreign policy? Please find me a single foreign policy crisis in Joe Biden's 40-year history in Congress that transpired over the 4 decades that Joe Biden was in Congress. Please show me where he was on the right side of history, where he was on the right side of good, sound foreign policy. You won't be able to find it. Because as his own Secretary of Defense said when Barack Obama was president, Joe Biden has literally been on the wrong side of every major foreign policy decision in his entire career. I challenge you to find me one. Find me one. So you what? Thought he was going to be president and shine as a rock star? By the way, his approval in foreign policy, look at that. Nope. They don't have it specifically, but they do have the Russian invasion of Ukraine, 37%. The economy, 31%. And they're almost right where we are, by the way, with COVID. Just we're a little bit reversed. Public schools are also sometimes expected to instill values that are important to our society. For each of the following, please tell me if you think instilling this value is an essential role for public schools to play. Important but not essential, not that important, or something public schools should not do. Teach students to be independent thinkers. 69% essential. Is that what our public school system does? Hell, is that even what our higher education institutions do? It is not. Let's get real. It is not. Teach students to respect authority. I'm a little bit shocked that 52% even say that. What authority? A certain healthy skepticism of authority is what the country was founded on. Now, law and order is one thing. Civic duty and civic obligation, is that what you really mean? That's different. Deference to authority is blind monarchism. Go live in Europe. Teach students to respect authority. Right? Teach respect for people of different races. 69%. I think Rodriguez is calling. Laura, you believe this? Teach patriotism. 38%. Where are we at? 134? Yeah, we're okay. So basically, only 38% think that it's important to teach patriotism in school. I got to tell you, folks, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, because there's a difference between blind patriotism and patriotism. Sometimes, like we said, during this conflict with Ukraine, sometimes the highest form of patriotism is to question your government when you believe them to be wrong. That can be the highest form of patriotism isn't blind obedience either. Right? And by the way, some fascinating dialogue between Washington and others about the nature of patriotism. Really fascinating stuff. But in any event, that's not held in very high regard at this point. During the Gulf War, we all had to get up and everybody had to say, the national anthem, a prayer for the soldiers, right? I actually think, was that not in order? Didn't Herbert Walker Bush order public schools to do something like that? Didn't he? That was like a presidential decree or something. But in any event, standing up and pledging your allegiance to the flag is has become controversial. For each of the following decisions educators in public schools routinely make, please tell us how much you trust the schools in your district to make a good choice. Do you completely trust, mostly distrust, or completely distrust them? This is like that question. I found this to be like that question. Why is it rain? You believe this? It was not supposed to. I find this because, of course, right? I should have went out yesterday. I find this question to be kind of like, everyone hates Congress, but nobody hates their own congressman, right? And I find this to be something similar to that. Ensuring books in school libraries are appropriate for students. 71% trust, 22% distrust. Teaching about racism in the United States. Look at that. That's a serious problem, don't you think? Only 9% completely trust public schools to do that. 9. That's it. 40% said mostly, but completely distrust is almost double completely trust. And again, that not sure, keep your eye on that because you know what that means. Mostly distrust is about 3 in 10, 29%. Responding appropriately when a student poses a risk of doing something violent. 69% trust, 24% distrust. And most of that, the vast majority, again, comes from mostly trust, okay? Not completely trust. Why? We've had one too many, I don't want to say their names, but one too many police, teachers, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, parents dropping the ball. In order to expand access to college for racial minorities, do you think a college or university should or should not be allowed to take a person's race into account when deciding whether to admit a person as a student? Look at the disconnect here. Affirmative action has always been unpopular. Always. By the way, I cannot do it without bringing this up. What kind of self-respected person would take a nomination to the Supreme Court of the United States based on the color of their skin? This woman is not a self-respecting woman. No. I told you this before I even knew the name, which Robert and I told you we thought this would be the name. But before we even did, we told you I know nobody of high character who would take a job because of their race like this. I know no other position other than in, apparently, cabinets, vice presidents, and Supreme Court nominations where it is not illegal to openly state that you are giving somebody a job because of the color of their skin. I told you that somebody who takes a job like this after knowing flat out that you're only getting it because of the color of your skin has to be a retribution ideologue. Not an equality believer or champion. Somebody who believes in retribution, punishment, to right the wrongs of the past by inequality. No way. This will not, mark my words, this will not end well. I don't care if it's like, I got an appointment. I want to appoint an Italian man. I wouldn't, who the hell would want a job because you just happen to check a box? By the way, the last time Joe Biden checked the box, how's that working out, Kamala? Seriously. The last time Joe Biden gave somebody a nomination simply because they checked some boxes, how's that working out, Pete Buttigieg? This is crazy. Lindsey Graham, you're a freaking coward. You are a coward. Chump. Viciously go after people who are protesting. What? That's your freaking house?
They pay for that. You're a nobody. You have never produced a goddamn thing in your life. You have lived off of the blood and sweat of the American worker your entire miserable, privileged life. You're a big tough guy when it comes to going after your own voters after you cried on Hannity like a little girl for them to give you money. You're a tough guy for that, but you will sit there with your tiny you-know-what between your legs and do nothing in the face of a woman like this. You are an A-class piece of garbage. You freaking coward. Slime ball little Mary. That's what you are.
He's a joke. That's
Joke.
what he is. The little kid that got picked on his whole
By the way, how's your post-Trump world treating you, you loser? You and Tom Tillis both voted for bills you thought you were going to get money, then they screwed you. And you're crying like little girls because they didn't give you the money. Of course they didn't, you losers. You're pathetic. Take your ass back to Colombia. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, you wouldn't even be a U.S. Senator right now. And you freaking know it. Neither you or Tillis. Be singing Nobody Knows But Jesus together by the pool, wondering how long you'll be able to afford your lattes and just chodes, man. Anyway, some states are considering using taxpayer money. Not your states. They beat you, losers. Not using taxpayer money to support students who wish to attend private religious schools. These schools often provide a religious instruction. Well, what? Oh my God, what gave that away? Private religious schools. In addition to a standard curriculum, do you strongly agree, mostly disagree, or strongly disagree with the use of taxpayer money to support students who wish to attend religious schools? Look at this. It's actually slightly disagree. Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that until the end of the 19th century, the Congregationalist Church, which is basically the descendants of the Pilgrims, handled public education in the state of Massachusetts? I bet you weren't aware of that at all. Until some loser judge with no law behind him uses a letter from Thomas Jefferson to justify some fabrication of a separation of church and state that he patently made up. A letter from Jefferson to Danbury is not codified law. There is no separation of church and state as you think you know it in the U.S. Constitution. It does not exist. They opposed an established religion because they opposed things like the Holy Roman Empire, something like the papacy, coming in and blending with the government. They opposed the influence post-Henry VIII the Anglican Church had in England. They adored Martin Luther. But they never said that church should be extinct in good governance. And by the way, not even Jefferson himself would have said that. That's not even what he was referring to in that freaking letter. 10 years later, by the way, Jefferson had a totally different view. Somehow that didn't make it into the precedent. It's not precedent. It's not law. It's not codified law. And the only reason why the church stopped supplying public education in Massachusetts was simply because of a decline in that religion's dominance over the entire population of the state. Ask of half the sample every other interview. They would do that. But across the United States, there are private religious schools affiliated with the Muslim, Jewish, and Christian traditions. Some states are considering using taxpayer money to support students who wish to attend private religious schools. These schools often provide religious instruction in addition to a standard curriculum. Do you strongly agree? Right, blah, blah, blah. Agree, 42% of using money for that. 55 disagree. All right.
And here I'm going to end it after this one. Okay. For each of the and then I want to go on to something else, because the bottom line is I'm trying to show you this huge disconnect and the opportunity actually Republicans have here. But they're too busy screwing their own voters to see the opportunity. I get, the fact is, folks, not everybody is as smart, as shrewd, and frankly, as ballsy as governors DeSantis and even Youngkin, for that matter. All right. They don't see it because, as Ron DeSantis put it himself, they're too busy being concerned about what might be said about them behind their back at the pinky up parties. Right. For each of the following actions the United States could take in response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, please tell me if you strongly agree, mostly disagree, blah, 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 right? Send U.S. armed forces into Ukraine to fight Russian soldiers. 24%. Wish we had some crosstabs here. Would be interesting, wouldn't it? 70% disagree. Providing U.S. weapons to Ukrainian fighters. 72% told them they agreed with that. We have it pretty high as well. 23% disagree. Enforce a no-fly zone is oppose 12. All right, which we're going to get into what we have as well. By shooting, because they said enforce a no-fly zone over Ukraine by shooting down Russian planes. That actually mimics the way we asked it last month, more so than we did this month. 40% agree, 52% disagree. Allow Ukrainian refugees to resettle in the U.S. 77% agree, 20% disagree. I will say this because I know the right can't stand these destabilization efforts, because that's what they are. Let's destabilize Libya, Syria. Let's destabilize Ukraine, Latin America, right? What happened to the war on drugs? I thought we were going to help. We destabilized these countries. We destroyed them. They were already crap holes, many of them anyway, before, but we made it worse. We gave corrupt countries a whole lot of money to be more corrupt. Destabilized the hell out of them, including places like Venezuela. Argentina was once a beautiful pearl until people like Pope Francis turned it into a leftist nation, and it destroyed itself quickly. However, this could come back to potentially bite Democrats, because we all know where this is going. Votes. There is a lot of evidence. It depends where these refugees would come from. What I would be concerned about is what Democrats do when it comes to Latin immigration, which is no Venezuelans, no Cubans. We will absolutely enforce the law. You heard Biden's secretary. He'll park the damn Navy off the coast of Florida, off the Florida Peninsula, to stop Republican voters from coming here. But he won't at all stop what he believes to be left-wing voters from other Latin American countries, right? There are areas in Ukraine which will absolutely favor Republicans. There's just, without a doubt, they're Eastern Orthodox. They are conservative. They don't like wokeness. Not everybody is like a Zelensky Kievite at all. So it's not at all clear that this would help Democrats, even though I already know where this is going, and so do all of you. And by the way, Joe Biden will take them and put them in your red neighborhoods, hoping to dilute your vote. I just don't know whether it would work. I'd be ashamed, frankly, if they would take as many people from metro, and it's not even metro, but, like urban areas, because there is a woke movement in Ukraine. There is. And I would worry they would want to take all of those areas, and they would leave people who have been persecuted, funded by us, in the eastern region, Donbass-esque, right? Mm-hmm. That would be shameful. And frankly, somewhat evil. Because we have been funding that massacre. Do you think Vladimir Putin of Russia is or is not an enemy of the United States? That's a rather stupid question. It is. Everybody's an enemy. You want the truth, ladies and gentlemen? We don't really have allies. France is such a good ally. Are you serious?
Oh man.
Are half of you not old enough to remember freedom fries? We were attacked on 9/11 and they wouldn't send a freaking fighter jet.
The last time France came through was at the
Revolutionary War.
and that was even cutting it.
And that was a wrap.
And it was really cutting.
I mean, this is a joke. Britain, don't mistake Western elite alliances with allies. Because that's what they're doing, and they're trying to sell you that as an alliance. These are rather weak nations. The real question should be, who is the greatest enemy? Which, by the way, we're coming up on the 1 year for that, and we'll be asking that soon. Soon. I can't remember. I think it was, if it's not this month, it's probably next month. That would be the 1 year anniversary of that. And by the way, we have a lot of stuff to go over with agencies and trusted institutions this week. That's why, locals, I got to do a live stream tomorrow. I've absolutely got to get this in because there's just so much.
Too much information.
It's just too much information.
Good thing, but
Yeah, it's a great thing. All right, let me stop sharing this now. And it looks like I forgot to even hit it for them to look at. But real quick before we go, I showed this to locals. I want to pop this up. It's out now. The bottom line is Republicans do not win certain votes. Like, for instance, over the years, if you are an abortion voter, since the value voter movement in 2004, hasn't really been a Republican vote. Education, the environment, things like that. Healthcare, outside of 2010, Republicans lost a healthcare vote now, believe me when I tell you, probably for a very, very long time. They had it, and they lost it because they did something you can never do. Break a promise. A main campaign promise that absolutely drove the majorities that the American people gave you. And you basically just flipped them off. John McCain was given a thumbs down, his crusty ass thumbs down. He wasn't given a thumbs down to Donald Trump. He was given a middle finger to America. Don't talk to me about honor and duty and integrity.
preach it.
Don't you dare with that man. Or any of the rest of them for that matter.
Because they're all pieces of
They're pieces of garbage. John McCain wasn't in office. The guy was he's still green behind the ears. He was embroiled in a real estate scandal. Get out of here, man.
Listen, just because.
It's because your daddy got you a job in the Navy, okay, which you never would have gotten on your own. Crash into a couple aircraft carriers lately. Still get a post. It's a freaking joke,
really
Laura.
pulled that.
Yeah, you're damn right I
Good
did.
for you. No, good for you.
It's a total. I'm so sick of this. I'm just over the charade. The charade. The charade of the artificial aristocracy, as Jefferson would call them. I am not playing along anymore. Is the quality of public schools in America getting better or worse? Or is the quality of public schools staying about the same? 58% told Rasmussen they are getting worse. 25%, more than the 13% who said better, said they're saying about the same. Look at minorities, ladies and gentlemen. They're almost in complete agreement with white voters, which no doubt is being driven by a lot of Republican white voters who were saying, they don't teach what they're supposed to teach. They're indoctrination camps, blah, blah, blah. Look at minority voters. Their reasons may be different, but their opinions are nonetheless the same. How important will the issue of education be in this year's congressional elections? 53% said very important. Somewhat important was 31%. 12% was not very important. Not at all was 1%. 3% was unsure. I'll tell you, in the ones we're involved in, or the ones we're polling even from a distance, it doesn't seem like it's a major issue, like a number one issue. But it is a peripheral issue that is very, very important as a secondary and tertiary issue. If you are one of these voters, there is a very intense block. Okay? Which brings me to this. Which party do you trust more to deal with education issues, Democrats or Republicans, or are the two parties about the same in dealing with education? 18% said the two parties are about the same. Republicans are carrying an education trust in handling education vote, 43 to 36. 7 points. In Virginia, Republicans carried voters who were concerned about education. I think it's pretty safe to assume the same was true in New Jersey. If this is a trend, this is a huge opportunity to really win over minority voters that are loosely associated with the Democratic Party, especially younger parents who have children. You want to know how to screw this up, ladies and gentlemen? Go start a war in Ukraine. These people care about their children. They care about their income. They care about the future. They don't give a rat's you-know-what about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. This is a trap from the Democratic Party, and if Republicans walk into it, they do not deserve the House of Representatives. They do not deserve to control either branch of government.
Amen.
If they walk into this, then they're too dumb for power. Now, you could make the argument Democrats are too statist for power. They're too Machiavellian for power. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm fine. I'll concede to that. But I in the game itself, dumb will lose to power hungry every time. Every time. And if Republicans fall for this trap, then they deserve it.
That's your 2-minute warning.
They deserve it. You're actually right. It actually is because the song is 2 minutes and 30. So I have to keep going like right about now to wrap it up. All right. So much to do this week still. Joe Kent, Don Smith on Friday. Tomorrow, a live stream. Friday, more trust and indicators. There's a lot to do, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So sign up for locals, not to miss those live streams. And also, too, we are kind of finalizing this book club time thing, right? Aren't we? We're going to meet soon to find out when we're eventually putting... Later today. And then what I was thinking, too, is getting a couple options and then putting it to the locals community in a survey.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then I will try to accommodate your top choices.
Mm-hmm.
I will try my damnedest. All right? All right. With that in mind, if you're watching on YouTube and you like the video, of course, come back. But hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But everybody should join on Rumble. Here today, gone tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. It's really that simple. It could be. All right. Join on Rumble, the People's Pundit Rumble channel. And when you're there, you can sign up for all those goodies we've been talking about on the locals community. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. And with that on Getter, you guys can follow me on Getter at People's Pundit. You can follow Laura on Getter too at Laura Barris, but she'll be in my profile and you can click right on her once you get there. All right. With that, I'm out. As always, thanks to the Bowen Band, but really thank all of you for tuning in. So much to do this week. Don't miss it. Don't miss an hour of it, folks. All right. Watched Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Be safe, be cool. Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. Can't make this stuff up. My chest beats its restless waste. The neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow